What are some things that are ethical, but illegal?
Refuse compliance with law can be exactly that, especially in a time where governments globally seem to turn more authoritarian and into kleptocratic regimes.
Before you die, cash out your entire estate and give it under the table to family, friends, etc. Don't let the government get a nickel of it. Illegal. Die with nothing except maybe large amounts of credit card debt under your name only, not illegal.
The old cliché, stealing food to feed your starving family.
Related to this, there is something called jury nullification, which is essentially the jury stating that the law is unjust, regardless of whether the accused actually broke a law or not. For example, failure to conflict violators of the fugitive law prior to the Civil War or charges on various alcohol laws during Prohibition.
Assisted suicide.
Speeding on the highway. Sure, the limit is 65, but everyone in the left lane is doing 80 to 85. Middle only when someone is doing the speed limit in the lanes that I see traffic back up and more people do risky passes in an effort to pass the person causing the traffic.
Making politicians responsible for their actions.
Agreed. I drive a 65 miles per hour highway to work every day. Everyone drives between 70 to 80 in just about every lane left of the most right lane. If you are driving the speed limit, you're unfortunately a safety hazard on major highways. General rule is go the speed of traffic.
Guerrilla gardening to promote biodiversity in public spaces and the propagation of native flora.
Unless you've got a huge estate, the government won't tax it. And if you've got anything with a cost basis, cashing it out and gifting it during your lifetime is a horrible idea. You'd pay capital gains and your family would have gotten a step up. This is bad advice, and for most people it's a way to give more money to the government.
One could argue that it's important who you are stealing from if it's from another starving family, a bakery, a giant food company, a bread hoarder, or a rich household whose inhabitants will hardly notice.
In the US, that restaurants give leftover, unused foods to homeless people.
If I grow a ton of food in my garden, and sell produce without proper permits, it's illegal.
Feeding the homeless.
This wouldn't work in the UK if you died within 7 years of giving a gift large enough that inheritance tax would normally be charged on it, so not illegal here. But the government is already 2 steps ahead if that's what your plan is.
In a lot of states that's not illegal, but, especially for chains, it's advised against because people have sued claiming to have gotten sick from donated food.
Downloading a movie illegally you already purchased on VHS, DVD, and possibly Blu-ray.
Yes, except that jury nullification isn't ethical by default, and it's also not technically. This misunderstanding that gets bandied around Reddit that jury nullification is some kind of third verdict, beyond guilty, or not guilty. It's not. It's just the term for when someone is obviously guilty but the jury votes not guilty because they don't believe the individual should be punished. It exists as the result of the intersection of two. The jury can't be punished for an incorrect when found not guilty. The defendant can't be tried again for the same into a court case. Intending to use jury nullification to pardon a guilty man is illegal, but the act of pardoning a guilty man is not illegal in and of for the inherent morality of jury nullification. The number of times it's been used to pardon southern state lynch mobs who murdered black people outweighs the number of times it's been used to pardon vigilantes who've revenge killed pedophiles, so weigh up the morality of its usage as you will.
Making police officers legally and financially accountable for their mistakes and outright malfeasance. It's called qualified immunity, baby.
Psilocybin mushrooms. Given the well-documented positive mental health benefits, being able to bring wine to restaurants and pay a corkage fee. This is illegal in many states in the US.
That's what sucks. You're throwing away some leftover fried chicken and there's a homeless guy out back. So instead of throwing it away, you give him some. You did a good. He gets sick, finds a pro bono lawyer, an ambulance chaser, and sues you. Your livelihood livelihood is this restaurant. Or you only work for the chain, but now the chain is getting sued and you get fired for causing you gave food to a homeless person. Yes, there can be some loopholes though. Give it away but accept a donation. A place I would get eggs from had this. They had a refrigerator on their porch, you grabbed a carton, and they had a sign for suggested donation.
Or downloading movies that are not sold anymore.
making the choice to abort an unwanted pregnancy, it seems.
They should make a law similar to the laws about giving people first aid. You can mess up first aid too and do something like break a rib, on a case-by-case basis that might be due to not doing chest compressions right. The law considers this an exception for inflicting injury because you were doing it with good intentions and they don't want to dissuade people from trying to save other people's life in an emergency.
When out hunting, you can see a deer or something that took a bad shot and is going to die but is still walking around for a few days with its guts out or something, and in many cases if you were to shoot it, you would have to tag it if in season or not be allowed to shoot it if not. Personally, if I come across one like that, I'm gonna put it down and not tag it or take it home. Deer and other animals are pretty tough and I've seen some with arrows in them living just fine. I'd only shoot one if it was obviously gonna die. I think that's the right thing to do.
They would always have the defense. At the time I really thought it was the best course of
collecting rainwater on your own property in some places of the US.
I had to buy stock in that company. I was about to pass a law that would make them tons of profit.
Mess up first aid and break a rib. If you're administering CPR and not breaking ribs, you're probably doing it wrong.
Mega core are the ones unjust advantaged. It's not ethical anything.
Prostitution. 2 consenting adults. By making it illegal and pushing it to the black market, you make everyone less safe. Legalize and regulate.
That's how I was taught. You're gonna break a rib. If you didn't do it right.
Or illegally downloading a game you can't play anymore.
That's the biggest thing for me. I don't feel the need to download a movie that I already own on physical media because I already have it on physical media. But a movie like Dogma or Dawn of the Dead that you just can't go out and buy a new physical copy of or find it available to stream on any legal service, then it's perfectly acceptable in my mind to download those. Also why I have no moral qualms about most video game emulation. Games companies have done a terrible job of making their older games available on new hardware so that people can play them, so I see no problem downloading an emulator and a ROM in order to play those games that are just unavailable through legal. It were up to me. Corporations would be required to make their stuff available through some legal channel or else lose their copyright of it.
To a dying day long ago, my uncle had a dog. A small day that dog escaped. It was mauled by a pit. Uncle got the gun and ended the suffering for his poor dog. Neighbor heard the shot and called the police. He got fined for killing the dog, for shooting a gun in public. He did it in his backyard, and they took his gun.
Nope, not true. Since 1996 you're protected from liability for that. The absolute main reason is logistics. You have to find someplace to store extra food until the agency gets there. The agency has to have proper transportation and storage capabilities, and then they need to have a distribution network for all that food to the right people. Amount of time and money that takes is usually prohibitive.
I'm so glad it's now legal in Canada. My mother's best friend was able to end her suffering on her own terms.
Piracy declined when media was accessible. It's increasing again now that every company wants their own streaming service.
Pulling all your money from the bank and hiding it under your mattress. At least in France, there's a limit of to what you can legally keep in your house. The rest has to be in a bank.
Similar here in NL. Any gifts given over about €1,000 in the 5 years before death count as if it was never given in the first place. If it was donated to charity, that charity may even have to give it back. If an inheritor received it, it will be counted as an advance on their part. Of the why it's so important you don't do it by bank transfer but give it away in cash. Cash can't be tracked and traced. Puts on tin foil hat, and that's why our governments are desperately trying to get rid of all physical money.